No one saw this coming, as we have multiple Colorado Avalanche updates coming both from within the inside of the team's roster as well as outside of the team in the entire league. And these updates have major implications as far as the near future for the Colorado Avalanche, looking ahead to the 2025-2026 season, the next Stanley Cup playoffs, and how the Colorado Avalanche are going to shape up in the league and in the playoffs based on these massive updates. We're going to dive into everything going on in the world of Colorado Avalanche hockey today, right here on Avs Digest. Welcome in. Happy to be with you here today on Avs Digest. Before we dive into today's news, I want to remind you, please make sure that you are subscribed to Avs Digest. This is the best place to get the most reliable, accurate opinions and news updates for the Colorado Avalanche. Take a look at this stat here. Look at how crazy this is. 90% of all of you that are tuning into Avs Digest and watching these videos on a daily basis are not subscribed, in comparison to a mere 9.2% of you that are actually subscribed to the channel and watching the videos. To that 9%, thank you so much for your support and for being subscribed to Avs Digest. To the other 90% of you, exit out of this video right now. Make sure that you're subscribed. This is your one-stop shop, the best possible place for Colorado Avalanche news, updates, opinions, news breaks, everything that you possibly need surrounding the Colorado Avalanche. Without further ado, let's dive into all the latest that is going on in the world of Avs hockey. Now, biggest update, which nobody saw coming. This was a massive piece of news that broke just the other day. Logan OConnor, Avalanche forward, recently underwent successful hip surgery. This was Friday, June the 6th, so just a few days ago. Procedure was performed by Dr. Brian Kelly at the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City. And as a result of the surgery, Logan OConnor expected to be out 5 to 6 months starting now, today. So that puts him available a little bit closer to kind of the Thanksgiving, Christmas time frame, but not having him for these, next few months is definitely going to be an interesting implication as far as, what the roster is going to look like, what kind of switches might be made by head coach Jared Bednar, because, obviously Logan OConnor, although he sits on that third, fourth line, the lower half of the roster, he produces quite a bit, and he's been, a really large asset to the Colorado Avalanche, both in the regular season and even specifically in the playoffs. This last playoffs, he did really well. This highlight here, as I'm sure you can probably remember if you were following the Avs closely in the playoffs, a game at home during the series against Dallas. Dallas gets a power play, and there's Logan OConnor right in the neutral zone there, creeping up on the blue line. He took that one all the way down for a shorthanded goal. An absolutely electric highlight by Logan OConnor. And he was able to produce quite a bit in these playoffs. You look at his playoff stats here on this graphic, kind of over the last few seasons, but specifically in the 2024-2025 season. In the 7 games that he played, he had 2 goals, 4 assists for 6 points. He was a +5 during the 7-game series against Dallas, which the Avs were not able to win, obviously. And then you even look back at the Cup run in 2021-22. In the 17 games that he played, he only had 1 goal, 3 assists, totaling for 4 points. So in those 7 games that he was able to perform in this year, he produced double what he was doing in that year during the Cup when he played in 17 games. So my point being here is a lot of improvement, both in just his regular game as well as his playoff game and how he plays in the playoffs for the Avs, which is, massive. So obviously the hope is that the surgery went well. Obviously it was a successful procedure, and we're not going to have him for those first few months of the season. So that October, November, and possibly the first half of December. So the hope is obviously that the Avs can get off to a hot start. They're a pretty deep roster. Their depth is starting to become a lot more formulated, especially with the Brock Nelson signing that happened very recently. So the hope is that Logan OConnor can kind of coast his way into the roster come December, maybe even January if he takes a little bit of extra time, and get right back into that spot of that third, fourth line where he's continuing to produce at the forward position, continuing to develop on a personal level as a player. And come playoff time, the hope is that he can continue to have some of the absolute highlight reel plays that he had during these Stanley Cup playoffs, where he, like I said, registered 6 points and was a +5 during his time on the ice in the 7-game series against the Dallas Stars. So massive news surrounding Logan O'Connor. Hip surgery was successful, but we won't see him for 5 to 6 months starting now. Great time to do the surgery as soon as the playoffs ended for the Colorado Avalanche. Gives him plenty of time to get healed up and kind of figure out what his deal is as far as his health goes. Take a look at the roster for the Avalanche forwards. This is obviously as of today, right now. Things are subject to change. We're not sure who is or isn't going to be sticking around, that is. But with that said, we see Logan O'Connor there at the right wing position on the third line. And, we kind of have to wonder, what will Jared Bednar do? What will he kind of craft up in the time that Logan O'Connor is unable to play and not suiting up with the Colorado Avalanche until he's completely healthy post hip surgery? So obviously we see him right there at that 3 right wing position, third line right wing. We were also seeing him play a little bit on the fourth line as well. It was kind of getting switched around. So there's a lot of room to move some things around and experiment a little bit, for Jared Bednar. I think that the possibility of moving Parker Kelly up to the third line would work. And then, you could also bump some people down and move Miles Wood up to the third line and bump Ross Colton down to the fourth line. It's kind of just whatever Jared Bednar thinks will mesh well and whatever he thinks will provide the best depth for the Avs as far as not having Logan O'Connor. And I think another interesting topic surrounding this that's worth noting is who could be pulled up from the Colorado Eagles. You have Ivan, who plays at the forward position for the Colorado Eagles. He played a large handful of games for the Colorado Avalanche this season, and he had strong stats and looked good as a young NHLer making kind of his debut in the primary league. You also have a player like Cale Makar, who wrapped up his collegiate career playing mostly at UMass and then finishing it off at Maine. He played the remainder of the season for the Eagles this season. Cale Makar's little brother has a lot of skill, has a lot of talent. Is he going to get bumped up, and is he going to potentially play in those positions as well? We're not really sure what that cycle is going to look like, but just looking at this roster here, considering that as of today, Logan O'Connor is in that third line forward spot, you can't help but wonder, what will Jared Bednar do? How will he kind of mix things up? And if he mixes things up while Logan O'Connor is still recovering from the injury and it works, what does that mean for the remainder of what the depth of this roster looks like, especially looking forward to another deep playoff run for the Avs in the near future? Speaking of deep playoff runs, one of the biggest issues for the Colorado Avalanche as of late has been the Dallas Stars. But after getting eliminated in heartbreaking fashion to the Edmonton Oilers in the Western Conference Final, Pete Dbor has been relieved of his duties with the Dallas Stars. After the Jake Ottinger pull 2 shots in and 2 goals in Game 5 at home of the Western Conference Final, Pete Dbor yanked the franchise goalie in Jake Ottinger, put in Casey DeSmith, and they went on to lose the game, lose the series, and bump Edmonton into their second straight Stanley Cup Final appearance. You look at here, kind of tough to read, but Pete Dbor has seen the Western Conference Final in 6 of the last 7 years, and he's been fired 3 times. What's this strategy that he's thinking about? What's this game plan? Obviously, an interesting position for him because he took the Sharks, the Knights, and the Dallas Stars to a Western Conference Final, and he was not able to produce in any of those situations. So you can't help but wonder what the deal is with Pete Dbor. But how this has implication for the Avs is that the Avs are a team that struggles against the Dallas Stars. You look at the last 3 times they've seen each other in the playoffs in the 2019-2020. They lost in the conference semis in 7. In 2023-24, they lost in 6 at home. That was the double overtime Matt Duchene heartbreaker. And then 2024-25 this year, obviously, up 2-0 with 10 minutes to go in the third period. And former Av Mikko Rantanen stabs us in the heart twists the knife and ends it with a hat trick for Avs faithful this season. But now Pete Dbor is out. He is not coaching for the Stars anymore. And the Stars season just ended in tragic fashion. They're expected to be making the cup over the last few years. They have a very strong, deep roster. Everything about their roster is complete. You obviously have amazing players like Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston, Mason Marchment, all those players on the forward side who produce so much for Dallas. And then you have their defenders in, Miro Heiskanen, drafted before Cale Makar was drafted. And he has developed into a phenomenal player. And then, of course, you have an all-star goalie in Jake Ottinger. You're not able to get through a team like Edmonton in the Western Conference Final consistently. I think that Pete Dbor getting fired is going to send the Dallas Stars on a downward spiral, which will do two things that will benefit the Avs. Number one, it might make them struggle more in the regular season, which can give the Avs a better chance at taking that second, maybe even first spot in the Central Division. And then also, when it comes playoff time, depending on where the Stars and the Avs are at in the playoff bracket on the Western side, the Avs might not have to deal with Dallas in the first, maybe even the second round, and they might get to play other teams and show off kind of their depth and their playoff skill level to a team that they haven't seen in recent history. Obviously, this is all based on standings and performance, and we're not sure who Dallas is going to hire or what the speculation is. I've heard some rumors and some thoughts that Peter Laviolette from the New York Rangers, who was recently relieved of his duties, is a potential for the Dallas Stars. But as I said, it is all just based on kind of what happens and where things land in the near future. So Pete Dbor is out in Dallas. That has a massive positive trend for the Colorado Avalanche. And considering that the depth is starting to become more and more complete for this Avs team, as long as someone like Logan O'Connor can have a healthy, speedy recovery and get back as soon as he can, these major updates are going to have massive implications for the Avalanche's performance in the 2025-26 season as they hope to make another deep run in the Stanley Cup playoffs.